One of the keys to be a successful entrepreneur is to become a master at communication and persuasion. Come on, let's talk about it. Welcome to Newsletter Guru TV, your show with a boatload of smart marketing and business building advice, and a little fun along the way.
This episode of Newsletter Guru TV is brought to you by Double My Retention. Use Jim's exclusive CPR client retention strategy to significantly boost your client retention and your profits.
Hey everybody, it's Jim Palmer, the Newsletter Guru, coming to you once again from Atlanta, Georgia, down here at the Glazer Kennedy Info Summit. You know, one of the things that every entrepreneur and small business owner needs to become good at is how to become a good communicator, but really more importantly is how to become a person who can persuade people, okay? And I'm very happy to bring to Newsletter Guru TV my good friend Dave Fries. Dave, welcome to Newsletter Guru TV.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I always love running into you in these seminars and things, and you know, the truth of the matter is we live really close, but we see each other more at these events.
I think that's
and
true.
Seminars. Dave, by the way, Steve Forbes, everybody knows who Steve Forbes is from Forbes magazine, the whole Forbes empire, calls Dave the Grand Master of Communication, which, wow, you can't get higher praise than that, Dave.
That's true. And he said that about a book I wrote on how to communicate and persuade more effectively in the family situation, and Steve has 5 daughters, so I figure he knows what he's talking about.
And my wife read that book and she loved it, by the way.
Thank you.
She's an educated teacher and psychology and all that stuff, so if she liked your book, it must be pretty good.
Well, thank you.
So, Dave, the folks who watch Newsletter Guru TV, as you know, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and I've heard you speak a number of times, and you've got some really powerful communication techniques, but you're also known as a master in persuasion. So, give us maybe 1 or 2 tips on how entrepreneurs can use some of these skills to have better relationships with their current customers, or maybe how to even have better sales calls, things like that.
Sure, happy to. And that's what everybody asks me, by the way. How do I be more persuasive? Give me a technique to be more persuasive. And I think what most people really want is to be more influential. They want to be a center of influence. Because persuasion, that's what people know me for and track me down, because that's what people think will make them more powerful and more able to increase their profit margins. But really being influential is where it's at. And persuasion is a tool of influence. What you really want are people to learn who you are and to turn to you for information where you're able to influence them in a very positive way.
You know, if I can interrupt,
Sure.
that's actually a chapter in my new book.
There you go.
Fastest Way to High Profits is how to become a person of influence. You know, I talk about branding and positioning. You know, the Newsletter Guru, you want to be the go-to person in industry. So you actually take it, I think, more kind of a higher level, kind of the inner game as far as becoming that person of influence.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to talk about. I promise that I'm going to give a couple of techniques that people could use when they're writing newsletter copy, when they're writing subject lines for emails, when they're writing blogs, when they're writing headlines for blogs. I'm going to give some specific techniques they could use, or when they're communicating face-to-face with an employee, with a prospect. We'll do that.
Okay.
But you're right. I like to focus on that inner game and the big strategy, because that's what makes everybody way more effective at what they do. If you learn a technique, it might or it might not work. It might or it might not work really well. But when you learn how to use techniques strategically, they tend to work better, more often, and so more consistently and more powerfully. So I just like to take a few minutes and talk about, as you say, the inner game, because when you get that under control, then everything else seems easier. People who are really great persuaders and who are people of influence, they're the folks that people turn to when they need information of almost any kind. They tend to be very, very flexible. And they cultivate that in themselves, which may sound sort of bizarre, but here are the implications of that when you're communicating. Anytime you're talking to a prospect, anytime you're talking to somebody that's working for you, whether it's an employee or somebody that you've delegated something to outside your organization, we have this tendency to feel like when we say something that they understand it to mean the same thing. But when I say, for example, if I say the word dog to your watchers, a certain number of you will make a picture of a dog. I did. Whenever I say the word dog, that's one of the reactions that I have. I make a picture of it. Some of you listening will have heard the sound of a dog or smell a wet dog from a memory you had. People react to the word dog in a lot of different ways. Some people see the word dog. Some people see the word cat. They're very troubled people, and they should be watched. But that does happen with some people. So the cat, people out there, just understand, you seek help. But my point is that what when we say a word and when we explain something to somebody, it doesn't mean exactly the same thing to them. So we have to be sort of facile and really at ease and flexible. When we say something, we want to check to see if it's working. And if it's not, we want to be flexible enough to find another way of working through it rather than getting frustrated. Because if I say something to you and you understand a different meaning, and I just get frustrated, I'm not going to get where I want to be with you. Whereas if instead I've cultivated the flexibility to say, this thing that I just tried to explain didn't work the way I explained it right now for Jim. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go next, next, and next until I find it. And I want to be able to do that in a way that makes you feel like I'm interested in you and care about you rather than I'm getting frustrated by you.
So one of the things I'm hearing is you have to be really in tune when you're speaking or presenting. You have to be in tune as to how people are receiving
Absolutely.
information.
Absolutely. And when you do that one-on-one, it's easier because you could say, I mean, the example I give when I speak is the turkey sandwich. If I say to somebody who's going out of my office, oh, by the way, you're running out, do you mind getting me a turkey sandwich, and here's the money, you could get whatever you want for lunch too, and I'll finish up this project while you're gone, and thanks. I mean, there's no reason they wouldn't want to get me a turkey sandwich.
Right.
And most people would say, oh, yeah, sure, I'll get you a turkey sandwich. But if I said, would you get me a turkey sandwich, and you run out, what kind of turkey sandwich would you get me?
Oh, I'd load it up. I put a lot of hot sauce on it, horseradish. I'd really try and,
That's just to torment me? Or
just for Dave.
The thing is, most people would go and get the turkey sandwich that they pictured in their minds, which is their perfect turkey sandwich.
Right.
But so when I say, would you get me a turkey sandwich, I'd go, oh, by the way, Jim, if possible, could you get it on toasted whole wheat bread and the thin turkey with a little bit of mayo? And now I'm much more likely to get exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
And you're not unhappy with me. I've asked for it in a really polite way, but I've checked back to make sure that you're getting me what I want. The same thing with your clients and your customers and your prospects. When you're trying to find out what they want, most people say, well, I paid attention, but I still get it wrong. That's because they're not using the words in the same way you are. We have to check in and go into a little more depth and ask them what it is they want. A lot of clients and prospects and customers, by the way, don't know. So even when we say, okay, I'm going to do what everybody tells me now, and I'm going to pay attention to what my client, customer, prospect wants so I can deliver it. The first run through, chances are they don't have a clear thought yet of what it is they really want.
Right.
So you got to explore that with them a little bit. In a way, we're responsible for teaching our prospects to get clearer about what they want, and we have to be clear about understanding it. So it's not always something that you get easily on the first run.
And this is a very, very powerful episode because Dave and I were in a mastermind group for like a couple of years together, so he knows my business intimately, and I've always shared, and in fact...
I'm a customer.
He is a customer, by the way, but there's actually another chapter in my book. I don't mean to keep mentioning my book, but why not? It's my show.
I mean, you know what? I didn't know about the book. I'm just leading into these things for you.
But there's an episode about Listen, Learn, and Profit, LLP. You know this, Dave. When I started No Hassle Newsletters, it was about content. And then people started asking me, well, I love the content, but I don't know how to design a newsletter. So I came up with the done-for-you templates. Then they said, I don't know how to get it printed mailed like you suggest, so I started Concierge Print Mail. So if you are really, really in tune to what your customers and prospects are asking for and just find a way to deliver it, that's how you build a profitable business. And
you got to give them the space. Ask them the kind of open-ended questions that are going to get them talking. And you could do this. This is very powerful because when you find out not just what your current clients or prospects want, but what the type of people who you want and who are able to pay for the services of a business that you want. So this may not be your business now, but the kind of business that you want. So when you're writing newsletters, when you're writing copy, when you're writing direct mail, you want to be appealing to the types of clients that you want to have, that are the type of people who will see value in what you do.
Right.
And so you want to be learning not just what your current clients and prospects have to say, but the kind that you want to come in, how they say it, use their language, create products and services like you did that are responsive to that, and maybe even use their language to describe not only the features and benefits, but the transformation that they're going to get out of it, like what they want their life to be like.
That's another good point. I talk about...
If you have a chapter in your book on that.
No, I talk about my famous customer-loving content. I trademark that. That's because one of my clients said, Jim, my customers love reading your content that you provide. I said, oh, it's customer-loving content. It's so, when you really tune yourself in. So, Dave, in our remaining minute or two, could you give a tip on, because a lot of people do email marketing. You mentioned subject lines
Sure.
earlier. Can you give a quick tip on how to write great subject lines, or?
Sure. Well, I do a program which you may or may not have ever seen, which is how I made an extra $1 million with an $8.95 subscription to Cosmo magazine. And if you want a really, really, really great course in writing copy, and especially the kind of teasers that go in email subject lines, you can go to my blog, which is successtechnologies.com/blog. That's simply it. And the Cosmo piece is one of the most read pieces, so it always shows up there. Just click on it. But a quick one is, if you don't even have to buy it, although I encourage you to, because some of the best copywriters going, some of the smartest and savviest persuaders are writing and designing that front page of Cosmo. And at least go to the grocery store and read the front cover blurbs while you're at it. But what I try to do is, obviously you're not going to steal, I'm not encouraging you to steal the front cover of Cosmo, and probably it would not be appropriate to mention the expression vajayjay in your your email subject line, and that will be prominently featured on the cover of Cosmo. But start to take a blurb, some teaser copy from Cosmo, and make a formula from it. So, I was challenged by Mike Capuzzi recently to take an outrageous headline that he found in Cosmo and convert it into a business article. Title, and I was able to, and it blew Mike away. He just said, like, you are a master at this.
Nice.
But the truth is, we could all take Cosmo magazine, 2 or 3 months worth, and take these blurbs that are on there and make a formula out of them. So, like, the 5 things that he'd kill to know in the bedroom becomes, the 5 things that, your topic, that your client or prospect needs to know to do what they want to do.
Right, whatever the benefit should be.
But I guarantee you that if you just take 2 or 3 copies of Cosmo magazine and you convert these blurbs into formulas, the blank, that blank, you're going to have a year's worth of email subject lines that are provocative, interesting, persuasive, and fascinating enough to get people to open it. Your email open rate's going to go up. If it doesn't, just give me a call. I guarantee it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, Dave.
Thank you for having me on here.
Folks, I'm always saying success leaves tracks, so follow Dave. How can they follow you? You're on social media.
Thank you. Social media, if you want to go to my personal page, there's still some space on there. It's Facebook is /David Freeze. You can follow Twitter at /Dave Freeze. And the blog is successtechnologies.com/blog, and I do put some really, really good free content up there.
You do. I follow maybe half a dozen blogs. Dave's is one of them, so you want to hook up with Dave. Hey, folks, if you got some value out of this, and if you didn't, just rewind it and watch it again, because there was some tremendous value.
I try to hide it.
Yeah, it's very subtle, by the way. That's the grandmaster part of it. But if you've enjoyed what we've shared with you today, I'd appreciate it very much if you share this with some other friends, other entrepreneurs, friends of yours. Go ahead and click the share button if you're watching this on Newsletter Guru TV. If you're watching this episode on Facebook, click the like button. And on both places, go ahead and leave a comment. I always love hearing from you. It's where we get a lot of ideas for the different episodes that we do. Hey, and before the day's out, look for ways that you can add more value to what it is that you're doing for your customers, your prospects, your patients. Because when you keep adding more value wrapped up with world-class service, your customers will stay longer. Customers that stay longer end up spending more and referring more. That's always a good thing in any language, right? And before the day's out, go do something nice for somebody. Let them let them get ahead of you in the highway and the on-ramp. Just say something nice. Make them feel good. It does make you feel special also. Until next time, this is Jim Palmer, the Newsletter Guru. You take care.